I'd rather burn this legacy than live in your lies.
The house creaked at 3 a.m, same as it had for the past 15 years. But tonight, lying in our king-sized bed with 2 feet of cold space between Nina and me, those creaks sounded different, like the whole structure was getting ready to collapse. I stared at the water stain on the ceiling, shaped like a boot or maybe a tool, depending on your mood, and listened to my wife's breathing, too shallow for sleep, too steady for honesty. "Eli!" Nina's voice cut through the darkness. "You awake?" Hard not to be when you're tossing around like a fish in a net. I kept my eyes on that stain. "Another hospital emergency keep you late." She shifted, and I caught a whiff of something that wasn't hospital antiseptic. Something expensive. Something that smelled like my brother Mark's cologne. "We need to talk." Nina sat up, her silhouette backlit by the streetlight filtering through our cheap blinds. At 39, she still had the figure that caught my eye at Jimmy's wedding 20 years ago. Too bad her heart had gone rotten somewhere along the way. "Talk away. I'm a captive audience." "Don't be sarcastic, Eli. This is serious." I finally looked at her. Even in the dim light, I could see she'd been crying. Nina never cried. Not when her father died, not when we lost the first baby, not even during the worst fights. But here she was, mascara smudged, looking like a woman who'd made a choice she couldn't take back. "How serious are we talking? Like the mortgage is late serious, or I've been screwing your brother for 6 months serious?" The silence stretched between us like a tightrope. I watched her face cycle through emotions. Surprise, guilt, anger. Then something that looked almost like relief. "I'm pregnant, Eli." I laughed. Actually laughed out loud because the alternative was putting my fist through the drywall I'd installed myself 3 summers ago. "Congratulations. Should I start picking out baby names, or do you and Mark already have that covered?" Nina flinched like I'd slapped her. We don't know." "Cut the crap, Nina. I've got a vasectomy scar and a receipt from Dr. Morrison to prove it. Unless you're claiming this is the second coming, that baby's got Carter DNA, but it ain't mine." She started crying harder then, those big dramatic sobs that probably worked on Mark. Poor successful Mark with his auto shop empire and his reputation as the town's golden boy. Mark, who'd never met a problem he couldn't charm his way out of, or a woman he couldn't sweet-talk into bed. "I didn't mean for this to happen," Nina whispered. It started as nothing. A few drinks after the hospital fundraiser. Mark was going through problems with Lisa, and I was frustrated with us, and you figured you'd help him work through his marital problems with your V. How charitable of you." "Eli, please. I know you're angry." "Angry?" I sat up, finally giving her my full attention. "Honey, angry was when you bought that new car without telling me. Angry was when you invited your mother for Christmas without asking. This is something else entirely." I got out of bed and walked to the window. Our street looked the same as always. Modest houses with modest dreams, pickup trucks in driveways, porch lights casting yellow circles on cracked sidewalks. This was supposed to be our life, our neighborhood, our future. "What do you want from me, Nina? You want me to play daddy to my brother's kid? Pretend this never happened? Keep the family name intact while you and Mark laugh about what a sucker I am?" "Nobody's laughing, Eli. Mark feels terrible about this. We both do." "I bet he does. Poor Mark having to deal with the consequences of his actions. Must be real tough for him." Nina got out of bed and walked over to me. In her nightgown, with her hair messed up and her makeup smeared, she looked vulnerable, almost like the woman I'd married, almost. "We could make this work," she said, reaching for my hand. "For Melissa's sake, if nothing else. She doesn't need to know. Nobody needs to know. We could raise the baby together and—" I pulled my hand away. "And what? Pretend I don't know my wife's been playing house with my brother? Pretend I don't know that half the town's probably been whispering about this behind my back? Pretend I'm not the biggest fool in Maine? It's not like that." "Then what's it like, Nina? Explain it to me like I'm stupid, because apparently I am—" She opened her mouth to answer, but a car door slammed outside. We both looked out the window to see Mark's red Mustang parked across the street. He was sitting behind the wheel, talking on his phone, occasionally glancing at our house. "He's been doing that all week," I said quietly. "Parking out there, watching. Making sure I don't do anything crazy, I guess. Or maybe just making sure his investment's protected." Nina's face went white. "Eli, you don't understand. I understand plenty. I understand that my wife and my brother decided I was expendable. I understand that my daughter's going to grow up knowing her mother's a cheater and her uncle's a snake. I understand that the Carter family name isn't worth the paper it's printed on. I walked to the dresser and started pulling out clothes. Jeans, work shirt, boots. The uniform of a man who builds things with his hands while other people tear them down with their choices. Where are you going? Downstairs, to think, to plan, to figure out what comes next. Eli, please. We can fix this. We can work it out. I stopped at the bedroom door and looked back at her. In the dim light, she looked small and scared and sorry. But sorry doesn't rebuild trust. Sorry doesn't erase betrayal. Sorry doesn't make a man forget that his wife chose his brother over him. You know what the funny thing is, Nina? I actually thought we were happy. I thought what we had was enough. Shows what I know about women, right? That's not fair. Fair? I laughed again, but there was no humor in it. Fair would have been you asking for a divorce before you started screwing around. Fair would have been Mark keeping his hands to himself. Fair would have been me not having to find out about this from the look on your face and the smell of his cologne on your skin. I headed downstairs to my workshop in the basement, my sanctuary, the place where I built cabinets and repaired furniture and pretended that craftsmanship still mattered in a world where everything was disposable, including marriages, including trust, including the Carter family name. But as I sat there in the dark, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects, I realized something important. Just because other people thought I was disposable didn't mean I had to accept it. Just because they'd written me off as the weak brother, the cheated on husband, the town fool, didn't mean the story was over. In fact, it was just beginning. Morning came with the smell of coffee and the sound of Nina moving around upstairs, pretending everything was normal. I'd spent the night in my workshop chair, staring at the pegboard where my tools hung in perfect order. Hammers, screwdrivers, measuring tape, level. Everything in its place, everything with a purpose, unlike my marriage. I climbed the stairs to find Nina at the kitchen table, dressed for work in her navy blue HR manager outfit, professional, composed, like she hadn't just blown up our life 12 hours ago. "There's coffee," she said without looking up from her phone. How considerate. I poured a cup and leaned against the counter, watching her. She was texting someone, probably Mark, probably planning their next move. The thought of them coordinating their story, making sure their lies matched up, made my jaw clench. "Mel's got soccer practice after school," Nina said, still not meeting my eyes. "I'll pick her up." "Like heck you will." That got her attention. She looked up and I saw fear flicker across her face. Good, she should be afraid. She'd just handed me a loaded tool and was surprised I might know how to use it. What's that supposed to mean? It means our 16-year-old daughter doesn't need to be alone in a car with you right now. I'll get her. Eli, you're being ridiculous. I'm still her mother. And I'm still her father. The difference is I'm not the one who just destroyed her family. Nina's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her face went pale. Without thinking, she turned the screen away from me, but I'd already seen enough. A text from M with a heart emoji. "He's texting you love notes now. Classy." "It's not, save it." I finished my coffee and set the cup in the sink. "I'm going to work. Try not to burn the house down while you're figuring out how to explain this to Mel. We agreed nobody needs to know." I stopped at the kitchen door and turned back to her. "We didn't agree on anything, Nina. You made a choice, and now you get to live with the consequences. All of them." The drive to the Hendersons' house gave me time to think. I had 3 kitchen cabinets to install and a bathroom vanity to level. Simple work, honest work. The kind of thing that made sense in a world gone sideways. Brady, my apprentice, was already there when I arrived, unloading tools from his beat-up Honda. At 19, he was all elbows and enthusiasm, the kind of kid who still believed hard work and integrity mattered. I envied him that. "Morning, Mr. Carter, you look like heck." "Thanks for the pep talk, kid. Let's get these cabinets hung." We worked in comfortable silence for the first hour. Brady had learned not to chatter when I was in one of my moods, and today I was definitely in a mood. But as we measured and marked and drilled, I found myself thinking about Nina's phone, about those text messages, about what other evidence might be floating around. "Brady, you're good with computers, right?" "Better than most old guys." He grinned to take the sting out of it. "Why?" "Just curious. Hypothetically speaking, if someone wanted to recover deleted text messages, how would they go about it?" Brady's grin faded. Hypothetically? Hypothetically. Well, hypothetically, there are programs you can download. Or if you had access to someone's cloud backup, you could see everything: photos, messages, call logs, the whole digital life. I nodded and went back to work, but my mind was racing. Nina wasn't tech savvy. She probably didn't even know about cloud backups, automatic syncing, digital footprints. She thought deleting a text made it disappear forever. She was about to learn otherwise. After work, I stopped by the Fisherman's Knot, the local bar where half the town gathered to drink beer and share gossip. I wasn't much of a drinker, but I needed information, and Tina Morrison, Nina's best friend and the town's biggest gossip, would be holding court at her usual corner table. Sure enough, there she was, surrounded by her circle of middle-aged hens, all of them cackling about someone else's misfortune. Tina saw me come in and waved me over with fake enthusiasm. "Eli, how's Nina? We missed her at book club last week." "She's been busy," I said, sliding into an empty chair. "Hospital's keeping her late a lot these days." Something flickered in Tina's eyes. Knowledge, guilt, complicity. Oh, you know how it is with healthcare, always some crisis or another. The other women nodded and murmured agreement, but I could feel the undercurrent. They knew something. Maybe not everything, but enough to make them uncomfortable around me. "Actually, Tina, I was hoping to talk to you privately about Nina's birthday next month. I want to plan something special." Tina's smile faltered. "Oh, that's sweet of you, Eli." We moved to a quieter table near the back. Tina ordered another wine. I stuck with beer. She was nervous, fidgeting with her wedding ring, avoiding eye contact. "So, what did you have in mind for Nina's birthday?" "That depends," I said quietly, "on whether you think she deserves a celebration or a wake." Tina went very still. "I don't know what you mean." "Sure you do. You know exactly what I mean. The question is, are you going to keep lying to my face, or are you going to tell me how long you've known about Nina and Mark?" The color drained from her face. She looked around the bar like she was planning an escape route, but I leaned forward, blocking her exit. "I already know about the affair, Tina. I know about the pregnancy. What I don't know is how many people have been laughing at me behind my back. How many people knew my wife was screwing my brother while I was home playing the faithful husband." "Eli, please, it's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is, because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my wife's best friend helped cover up the biggest betrayal of my life." Tina started crying then, those quiet tears that women cry when they've been caught red-handed. "I told her it was wrong. I told her she needed to end it or tell you. I never wanted any of this to happen. But you didn't stop it. You didn't tell me. You let me walk around this town like an idiot while everyone whispered about poor, stupid Eli Carter. It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like? Paint me a picture, Tina. Help me understand how my best friend's wife and my brother's mistress thought this was going to end well." She wiped her eyes with a cocktail napkin. "It started at the hospital fundraiser in March. Nina had too much to drink and Mark offered to drive her home. One thing led to another and they've been meeting at his lake cottage ever since." 6 months. They'd been betraying me for 6 months while I built cabinets and coached Mel's soccer team and believed in the sanctity of family. While I trusted them both with my life, they'd been planning its destruction. Who else knows? Just me, and Lisa suspects something, but Mark's been careful. Not careful enough to use protection, apparently. Tina flinched. "Nina's scared, Eli. She doesn't know what to do. She should have thought about that before she spread her legs for my brother." I stood up, tossing a 20 on the table. "Here's what's going to happen, Tina. You're going to go home and think real hard about loyalty and friendship and what those words mean. And then you're going to decide whose side you're on, because this thing is just getting started. And when the dust settles, people are going to remember who stood where." I left her sitting there, crying into her wine, and walked out into the cool Maine evening. The sun was setting over the harbor, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. Beautiful, peaceful, the kind of sunset that made you believe in second chances and happy endings. But I wasn't feeling peaceful. I was feeling something else entirely, something dark and focused and absolutely certain about what came next. Nina and Mark thought they'd won. They thought they'd outmaneuvered the simple carpenter, the blue-collar fool who wouldn't fight back. They thought they could manage me, control the narrative, keep their secrets safe while they played house with my life. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I picked up Mel from soccer practice, watching her jog toward my truck with grass stains on her uniform and determination in her eyes. At 16, she was already taller than her mother, with my stubborn chin and Nina's quick wit. She was going to need both in the days ahead. "How was practice?" I asked as she climbed in. "Coach says I might make varsity next year if I keep working on my footwork." She buckled her seatbelt and studied my face. "You look weird, Dad. Everything okay?" Define okay. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I've got right now, kiddo. We drove home in comfortable silence. Mel had always been intuitive, able to read the temperature of a room before she walked into it. She knew something was wrong, but she also knew when to push and when to wait. Right now, she was waiting. The house was dark when we pulled in. Nina's car was gone, probably at Mark's cottage, probably planning their next move. The thought of them together, discussing how to handle me, how to manage the situation, made my hands tighten on the steering wheel. "Where's Mom? Working late? Again?" Mel gave me a look that said she wasn't buying it, but she didn't push. We went inside and I made grilled cheese sandwiches while she did homework at the kitchen table. Normal evening, normal routine, normal family dinner for 3 with only 2 people present. After Mel went to bed, I sat at Nina's desk in the corner of the living room and opened her laptop. She'd never been paranoid about passwords. Her birthday, our anniversary, Mel's middle name, simple combinations for a simple betrayal. Her email was a goldmine. Messages from Mark going back months, carefully worded but unmistakably intimate. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Thinking about this afternoon. You looked beautiful at dinner last night." Dinner last night. While I was home with Mel, helping her with algebra homework, my wife was having a romantic dinner with my brother. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. But the emails were just the beginning. Her photo backup revealed the real evidence. Pictures I never should have seen, videos that made my stomach turn, proof of an intimacy that belonged to me, but had been given to him. I copied everything to a flash drive, then cleared the browser history and closed the laptop. Nina would never know I'd been there, but now I had ammunition. The question was how to use it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at the cottage tomorrow night at 8. Come alone. M. Mark." Reaching out directly now, probably panicked that I might do something unpredictable. He wanted to control the conversation, manage the situation, maybe offer me some kind of deal. Poor Mark, thinking he could negotiate his way out of this like he was selling a used car. I texted back, "See you there." The next day crawled by. I installed the Henderson's bathroom vanity, fixed Mrs. Patterson's squeaky door, and replaced 3 rotted deck boards for the Kowalskis. Honest work with honest people who paid their bills and didn't sleep with their in-laws. Brady could tell something was eating at me, but he kept his questions to himself. Good kid. He was learning that sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is give them space to work through their problems. At 7:30, I drove out to Mark's lake cottage. It was a beautiful property, 2 acres of pine trees, a private dock, a view that probably cost him $200,000 more than it was worth. But Mark had always been about appearances, about status, about showing the world how successful he was. His Mustang was already there when I arrived. I parked behind it, blocking his exit, and walked up to the front door. It opened before I could knock. "Eli." Mark looked older than his 44 years, stress lines around his eyes, his usually perfect hair disheveled. "Thanks for coming. Wouldn't miss it." He led me inside to the living room, all leather furniture and stone fireplace and windows overlooking the lake. The kind of place where rich people went to pretend they were outdoorsmen. The kind of place where my brother brought my wife to screw her on Egyptian cotton sheets. "You want a beer?" "I want an explanation." Mark poured himself a scotch and sat across from me. "I know you're angry. Stop right there. Don't tell me what I am. Don't tell me what I feel. Don't sit there in your fancy cottage with your expensive whiskey and pretend you understand anything about what I'm going through." "Fair enough." He took a sip and set the glass down. "What do you want to know?" "I want to know how long you've been planning this. I want to know if you set out to destroy my marriage or if you just stumbled into it. I want to know if you ever, for even 1 second, thought about what this would do to me. It wasn't planned, Eli. It just happened. Bees. Affairs don't just happen. They're a series of choices. You chose to flirt with my wife. You chose to touch her. You chose to bring her here and sleep with her in your bed while I was home trusting you both. Those were deliberate decisions, Mark. Own them." His face flushed red. "You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to hurt you?" "I think you wanted Nina, and you didn't care who got hurt in the process." "That's not true." "Then explain it to me. Help me understand how my brother and my wife ended up in bed together while I was playing the fool. Mark stood up and walked to the window. Nina was unhappy, Eli. She felt trapped, ignored, taken for granted. She needed someone to see her, to appreciate her. And you volunteered for the job. I listened to her. I made her feel special. I gave her what she wasn't getting at home. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. He wasn't just admitting to the affair. He was blaming me for it, making it my fault that my wife cheated, my fault that my brother betrayed me, my fault that my family was destroyed. So this is on me. I drove Nina into your arms by being a bad husband? I'm not saying that. That's exactly what you're saying. I stood up, my hands clenched into fists. You're saying I deserved this. You're saying Nina had a right to cheat because I wasn't meeting her needs. You're saying I should be grateful that my brother was there to service my wife when I fell short. Eli, calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. The words exploded out of me, months of suppressed rage and betrayal and humiliation boiling over. You slept with my wife, you got her pregnant, you destroyed my family, and now you want me to calm down? Mark backed away from the window, his hands raised like he was dealing with a dangerous animal. I know you're upset. Upset? Upset is when the Patriots lose. Upset is when it rains on your day off. This isn't upset, Mark. This is something else entirely. I moved toward him, and he retreated further, bumping into the coffee table. For the first time in our lives, my older brother was afraid of me. The golden boy, the successful businessman, the town hero, reduced to a scared man backing away from his younger brother's rage. What do you want, Eli? What's it going to take to make this right? Right? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think there's a way to make this right? You think you can write a check or make a speech or do some grand gesture that's going to fix what you broke? There has to be something. There is something, but you're not going to like it. Mark's face went pale. What? You're going to leave town, Mark. You're going to sell the business, pack up your things and disappear. You're going to get out of my life and stay out forever. I can't do that. My business is here. My life is here. Your life is here. What about my life? What about the life you and Nina destroyed? I stepped closer, backing him against the fireplace. You want to keep your business? You want to keep your reputation? You want to keep living in this town like nothing happened? Then you better hope I don't decide to share those photos Nina's been sending you. His face went white. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. One of the pictures from Nina's cloud backup, the two of them in this very room. Am I? Mark's legs gave out and he sank into his chair. Jesus Christ, Eli. You can't show those to anyone. Why not? They're beautiful pictures. Really capture the love between a brother and sister-in-law. I bet Lisa would love to see them. I bet the whole town would. Please, think about Nina. Think about Mel. This would destroy them too. You should have thought about that before you started taking pictures. I put the phone away and headed for the door. You've got a week, Mark. 7 days to figure out how you're going to disappear from my life. If you're still here on Sunday, those pictures go public. Your choice. Eli, wait. I stopped at the door but didn't turn around. What? What about the baby? What about it? Nina's going to need support, financial support. Then you better make sure you leave her enough money to raise your kid, because I'm done supporting your mistakes. I walked out into the cool night air, leaving my brother sitting in his expensive cottage with his expensive problems. The lake was calm, reflecting the stars like a mirror. Beautiful. Peaceful. The kind of place where people came to escape their troubles. Too bad Mark's troubles were just beginning. The week passed like a slow-motion car crash. Nina tried to act normal, making breakfast, asking about my day, pretending our marriage wasn't falling apart on the kitchen floor. Mark stayed away from the house, but I caught glimpses of his Mustang around town, at the bank, at his lawyer's office, at the real estate agency. Good. He was taking me seriously. Mel knew something was wrong. She'd catch me staring off into space, or notice Nina's red eyes at breakfast, or feel the tension crackling between us like electricity before a storm. But she was 16, focused on her own life, trusting that the adults would handle whatever adult problems were brewing. If only she knew. Friday afternoon, I was replacing deck boards at the Kowalskis when Tina Morrison showed up. She looked nervous, glancing around like she was afraid of being seen talking to me. Eli, we need to talk. About what? About what you're planning to do. I set down my hammer and looked at her. What makes you think I'm planning anything? Nina's scared. She says you've been acting strange, distant. She thinks you might do something drastic. Like what? Leave my wife for screwing my brother? Yeah, that would be pretty drastic. You know what I mean? I did know what she meant. Nina was worried I might hurt Mark or hurt myself, or do something that would bring the whole mess into the open. She was worried about consequences, about exposure, about the comfortable lie she'd built with my brother coming apart in public. Tell Nina she doesn't need to worry about me doing anything drastic. Tell her I'm a reasonable man who's going to handle the situation in a reasonable way. What does that mean? It means she'll find out soon enough. That evening, I took Mel out for pizza at Antonio's, our usual Friday night tradition. She ordered her usual pepperoni and mushroom. I stuck with plain cheese. We sat in our usual booth by the window, watching the town go about its Friday night business. Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd been dreading it, preparing for it, but hearing it from my daughter's lips made it real in a way that nothing else had. What makes you ask that? You barely talk to each other. Mom's been crying. You've been sleeping in the workshop. I'm not stupid, Dad. I reached across the table and took her hand. Whatever happens between your mother and me, it doesn't change how we feel about you. You know that, right? That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you right now. Mel squeezed my hand. Is there someone else? Is that why you're fighting? Smart kid. Too smart for her own good sometimes. Yes, I said quietly. There's someone else. Who? I looked at my daughter, my beautiful, innocent daughter who still believed in fairy tales and happy endings, and realized I couldn't tell her the truth. Not yet. Not like this. It's complicated, kiddo. Adult stuff, but I promise you'll know everything soon. We finished dinner in relative silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Mel was trying to process the idea that her parents' marriage was ending. I was trying to figure out how to protect her from the ugly truth of why. Saturday morning, I drove to Mark's auto shop. It was closed, but I had a key. We were brothers, after all, partners in the family business, even though Mark owned the building, and I just helped out when he needed extra hands. The shop was empty, tools hanging neatly on pegboards, 3 cars waiting for Monday morning repairs. Mark's office was in the back, a glass-walled cube where he handled the business side while his mechanics did the real work. I sat at his desk and opened his computer. Mark wasn't any better with passwords than Nina. His birthday, his high school graduation year, the name of his first car. Simple combinations for a simple man. His email was full of the usual business correspondence, but buried in the deleted folder I found what I was looking for. Messages to Nina, of course, but also messages to other women. Apparently, my brother's appetite wasn't limited to my wife. He'd been working his way through half the single women in town, and a few married ones too. I copied everything to a flash drive, then opened his business files. Mark's auto repair was more successful than I'd realized. $300,000 in annual revenue, $50,000 in the business checking account, a line of credit that could cover 6 months of expenses. But there were also problems. Late payments to suppliers, overdue insurance premiums, a tax lien that hadn't been resolved. Mark was living beyond his means, spending money on his cottage and his cars and his lifestyle while his business slowly strangled. I made copies of the financial records too, then locked up and drove home. Nina's car was gone, probably at the cottage again, probably making plans with Mark. They still thought they could manage this situation, control the narrative, keep their secret safe. They were about to learn otherwise. Sunday morning, I got up early and made pancakes for Mel. She came downstairs in her pajamas, hair messy from sleep, looking younger than her 16 years. Where's Mom? Still sleeping. It wasn't technically a lie. Nina had come home around 2 in the morning, slipping into bed like she thought I wouldn't notice. I'd pretended to be asleep, listening to her breathing, smelling Mark's cologne on her skin. After breakfast, Mel went to her room to get ready for soccer practice. I waited until I heard the shower running, then knocked on Nina's bedroom door. Come in. She was sitting up in bed, looking haggard and worried. The pregnancy was starting to show. Just a slight curve to her belly, but enough to make the situation real in a way that words couldn't. We need to talk. About what? About your future. Yours and Mark's and the baby's. Nina's face went pale. Eli, please, can't we work this out? Can't we find a way to make this okay? It's too late for that. I sat on the edge of the bed, close enough to see the fear in her eyes. I know about the other women, Nina. I know Mark's been cheating on Lisa for years, and you're just the latest in a long line. I know about his financial problems, his tax issues, his overdue bills. I know everything. What are you saying? I'm saying your boyfriend isn't the successful businessman you think he is. I'm saying you picked the wrong horse in this race. Nina started crying then, those quiet tears that women cry when they realize they've made a terrible mistake. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen, and now we all have to live with the consequences. What do you want from me? I want you to pack your things and move out, today, this afternoon, before Mel gets home from practice. Eli, no, please, this is my home too. Was your home, past tense. You gave up the right to live here when you decided to sleep with my brother. The crude words hit her like a slap. Nina flinched, fresh tears streaming down her face. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. Move in with Mark, move in with Tina, rent an apartment. I don't care. But you're not staying here. What about Mel? What about her? She's my daughter too. Then you should have thought about that before you decided to destroy her family. I stood up and walked to the door. You've got 4 hours, Nina. 4 hours to pack up your life and get out of mine. If you're still here when Mel gets home, I'm going to show her the pictures from Mark's cottage. I'm going to tell her exactly what kind of mother she has. Nina's face crumpled. You wouldn't try me. I left her there, crying into her pillow, and went downstairs to wait. 3 hours later, I watched from the kitchen window as she loaded suitcases into her car. She looked back at the house once, her face streaked with tears, then drove away. When Mel got home from practice, I was waiting in the living room. Where's Mom? She moved out. What? Why? I took a deep breath and looked at my daughter, my beautiful, innocent daughter who was about to learn that the world wasn't as safe as she believed. Because she's been having an affair with your Uncle Mark. Because she's pregnant with his baby. Because sometimes people make choices that destroy everything good in their lives. Mel stared at me for a long moment, processing the information. Then she sat down hard on the couch like her legs couldn't support her anymore. Uncle Mark? But he's married to Aunt Lisa. Yes, he is. And she's pregnant. Yes. With Uncle Mark's baby? Yes. Mel was quiet for a long time, staring at the floor, trying to make sense of a senseless situation. When she finally looked up, her eyes were hard in a way that reminded me of myself. What happens now? Now we figure out how to move forward, just you and me. What about Mom? What about Uncle Mark? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Don't worry about them, kiddo. They're going to get exactly what they deserve. Monday morning brought the first real taste of autumn. Crisp air, leaves starting to turn, the kind of weather that made you think about change and new beginnings. I dropped Mel off at school, watching her walk toward the building with her shoulders straight and her chin up. She was handling the situation better than I'd expected, but then again, she was a Carter. We were tougher than people gave us credit for. The phone started ringing before I got home. First Tina, then Nina's mother, then my own mother calling from Florida. Word was spreading through the town's gossip network like wildfire. Nina had moved out, the marriage was over, and everyone wanted to know why. I let them all go to voicemail. At 10 o'clock, Mark's Mustang pulled into my driveway. He sat there for a few minutes, probably working up the courage to face me, then got out and walked to the front door. He looked terrible. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, eyes red from lack of sleep. I opened the door before he could knock. Your week's not up yet. We need to talk, Eli. Please. Talk about what? Your exit strategy, your relocation plans, your going away party? About Nina. About the baby. About making this right? I stepped aside and let him in. He walked to the living room and sat heavily on the couch, like a man carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Nina's staying at the cottage, he said. She's scared, confused. She doesn't know what to do. She could start by getting a job. Single mothers need income. Come on, Eli. Don't be cruel. Cruel? I sat across from him, studying his face. You think I'm being cruel? You sleep with my wife, get her pregnant, destroy my marriage, and you think I'm the one being cruel? I know you're angry. Stop saying that. Stop telling me what I am. You don't get to define my emotions anymore, Mark. You lost that right when you decided to betray me. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I remembered from childhood when he was trying to talk his way out of trouble. What do you want from me? What's it going to take to end this? I told you what I want. I want you gone. I can't just leave, Eli. My business is here. My life is here. Lisa and I are trying to work things out. Lisa knows? Mark's face flushed red. She found some text messages. We're going to counseling. How's that working out for you? She's hurt, but she's willing to try, for the sake of our marriage. I laughed out loud. Let me get this straight. You're cheating on your wife with my wife, you got my wife pregnant, and now you want to go back to your wife and pretend none of this happened? It's complicated. It's not complicated at all. You're a selfish bastard who wants to have his cake and eat it too. You want to keep your business, your marriage, your reputation, and your pregnant mistress. You want all the benefits with none of the consequences. That's not true. Isn't it? Then prove me wrong. Choose one. Nina or Lisa, the baby or your marriage, your old life or your new one. Make a choice and stick with it. Mark was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. When he finally looked up, I saw something in his eyes that looked almost like relief. I choose Lisa. I choose my marriage. What about Nina? What about the baby? That's Nina's problem now. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. He was abandoning Nina, abandoning his own child, choosing the safe option over the right one, choosing his reputation over his responsibility. You're a coward, Mark. I'm being practical. You're being a coward. You seduced my wife, got her pregnant, destroyed 2 marriages, and now you want to walk away like nothing happened. What else can I do? You can be a man. You can take responsibility for your actions. You can support the woman carrying your child. I'll pay child support. I'll help financially. How generous of you. Mark stood up, smoothing his wrinkled shirt. I'm going to tell Lisa everything. I'm going to confess, ask for forgiveness, try to rebuild our marriage. And I'm going to ask you to keep this between us, for everyone's sake. You want me to keep your secret? You want me to protect your reputation while you abandon my wife and your child? She's not your wife anymore. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. He was right, of course. Nina had made her choice when she climbed into his bed. But hearing him say it, hearing him dismiss 20 years of marriage so casually, made something dark and cold settle in my chest. You're right. She's not my wife anymore. She's your problem now. Except you're not going to be here to deal with her, are you? You're going to run back to Lisa and leave Nina to figure out how to raise your baby alone. I told you I'll help financially. Money isn't going to raise that child, Mark. Money isn't going to explain to a kid why daddy doesn't live with mommy. Money isn't going to fill the hole you're leaving behind. That's not my fault. It's exactly your fault. You created this situation. You made these choices. And now you want to walk away from the consequences? Mark headed for the door, then stopped and turned back. What are you going to do, Eli? Are you going to keep this quiet? Or are you going to try to destroy me? I looked at my brother, my older brother, who'd always been the golden boy, the successful one, the one everyone looked up to, and realized I felt nothing for him anymore. Not love, not hate, not even disappointment. Just a cold, empty space where family loyalty used to be. I'm not going to destroy you, Mark. You're going to do that all by yourself? After he left, I sat in my living room and thought about choices and consequences and the price of betrayal. Mark thought he could abandon Nina and go back to his old life. Nina thought she could start over somewhere else, maybe find another man to help raise Mark's child. They both thought the story was over, that they could close this chapter and move on to whatever came next. They were both wrong. The story wasn't over, it was just beginning. And before it ended, everyone in this town was going to know exactly what kind of people Nina and Mark really were. Everyone was going to see them for what they were. Selfish, cruel, destructive people who put their own desires ahead of everyone else's happiness. I picked up my phone and started making calls. To the local newspaper editor who owed me a favor. To the president of the hospital board where Nina worked. To the Better Business Bureau investigator who'd been asking questions about Mark's auto shop. It was time for the truth to come out. All of it. Every dirty detail, every betrayal, every lie. It was time for Nina and Mark to face the consequences of their choices. It was time for justice. The Harvest Festival was always the biggest event of the year in our town. 3 days of craft booths, food vendors, and small-town politics, culminating in the annual awards ceremony where local heroes were recognized for their contributions to the community. This year, Mark was scheduled to receive the Business Leadership Award. Nina was supposed to present the Community Service Award as a representative of the hospital. They were going to stand on that stage in front of the whole town, smiling and waving like the pillars of the community, they pretended to be. But things don't always go according to plan. The festival started on Friday morning with the usual fanfare. I walked through the crowd with Mel, watching neighbors and friends enjoy themselves, pretending everything was normal. People kept asking about Nina, where she was, why she wasn't with us. I just smiled and said she was dealing with family issues. They'd know soon enough. Saturday afternoon, I ran into Lisa at the coffee booth. Mark's wife looked tired, older than her 42 years, like she was carrying a weight she couldn't put down. Eli, I'm so sorry about everything. What are you sorry for, Lisa? About Mark and Nina? About what they did to you, to us, to our families? So she knew. Mark had confessed, probably hoping honesty would earn him forgiveness. Poor Lisa, trying to hold her marriage together while her husband's bastard child grew in another woman's belly. It's not your fault, Lisa. I should have seen it coming. The late nights, the phone calls, the way he acted around Nina at family gatherings. I should have known. We both should have known a lot of things. She nodded, tears threatening to spill over. What are you going to do? What do you mean? Mark says you're planning something. He's scared, Eli. Really scared. He should be. Please don't hurt him. Whatever you're planning, please don't hurt him. I know he doesn't deserve it, but he's still my husband. I looked at Lisa. Loyal, faithful Lisa, who was begging me not to destroy the man who'd betrayed us both, and felt something like pity. I'm not going to hurt him, Lisa. I'm just going to tell the truth. Sunday evening was the awards ceremony. The whole town gathered in the main pavilion, folding chairs arranged in neat rows, a small stage decorated with autumn leaves and harvest decorations. Mayor Patterson stood at the podium, reading from prepared remarks about community spirit and local heroes. I sat in the back with Mel, watching the proceedings. Mark was in the front row with Lisa, wearing his best suit, looking nervous. Nina was nowhere to be seen, probably at the cottage, probably too ashamed to show her face in public. This year's Business Leadership Award goes to a man who's built his company from the ground up, Mayor Patterson announced. A man who employs 12 people, supports local charities, and exemplifies the entrepreneurial spirit that makes our community strong. Please join me in recognizing Mark Carter of Mark's Auto Repair. The crowd applauded as Mark walked to the stage. He shook the mayor's hand, accepted the plaque, and stepped up to the microphone. This was his moment, his chance to bask in the community's admiration. Thank you, Mark began. This award means more to me than I can express. This town has given me everything. My business, my friends, my family. I'm honored to be part of such a wonderful community. That's when I stood up. Actually, Mayor Patterson, I have something to add. The crowd turned to look at me. Mark's face went white. Lisa closed her eyes like she was praying. Eli, the mayor said uncertainly, this isn't really the time for... I think it's exactly the time. I walked toward the stage, my footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet pavilion. See, I have some information about this year's Business Leadership Award winner that I think the community should know. Eli, don't. Mark's voice was barely a whisper. Don't what? Don't tell them about the tax liens on your business? Don't tell them about the overdue insurance payments? Don't tell them about the 3 different women you've been sleeping with while your wife thought you were working late? Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lisa buried her face in her hands. Mark gripped the podium like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Or maybe I should tell them about my wife, about how you seduced her, got her pregnant, then abandoned her when things got complicated. About how you destroyed 2 marriages for a few months of fun. That's enough! Mark shouted into the microphone, his voice echoing through the pavilion. Is it? Is it enough? Because I don't think the people of this town know what kind of man they just honored. I don't think they know what kind of business leader they're celebrating. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. I've got photos, Mark, emails, financial records, everything. The whole sordid story of how the golden boy of this community is actually a lying, cheating, tax-evading fraud. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. This was better than any soap opera, better than any reality TV show. This was real drama, real betrayal, real consequences playing out in front of their eyes. Please, Mark whispered, think about Mel. Think about Lisa. Think about what this will do to them. I did think about them. I thought about how they deserve better than being lied to and betrayed. I thought about how they deserve to know the truth about the man they trusted. I turned to face the crowd. My brother Mark has been having an affair with my wife Nina for the past 6 months. She's pregnant with his child. He's been cheating on his taxes, his wife, and his community. And now he wants to stand up here and accept an award for leadership while he abandons the woman carrying his baby. The crowd erupted. Voices raised in shock, anger, disbelief. People turning to their neighbors, sharing gossip, processing the information. Mark stumbled away from the microphone, his face ashen. Lisa was crying openly now, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Mayor Patterson grabbed the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's maintain some decorum here. But there was no controlling the crowd now. 20 years of small-town politeness had just been shattered by the truth. People were standing, shouting questions, demanding answers. The carefully orchestrated ceremony had become chaos. I walked back to where Mel was sitting. She looked up at me with something like awe in her eyes. Dad, that was justice, kiddo. That was what happens when people think they can lie and cheat and betray without consequences. We left the pavilion as the crowd continued to buzz with excitement. Behind us, Mark was trying to explain himself to a group of angry business owners. Lisa was being comforted by friends. The mayor was attempting to restore order, but the damage was done. The truth was out, and there was no taking it back. Monday morning, I got a call from the hospital. Nina had been terminated for conduct unbecoming a hospital employee. Apparently, the board didn't think a pregnant adulteress was the right person to represent their community values. Tuesday, Mark's biggest client canceled their service contract. By Wednesday, 2 more had followed suit. By Friday, he was talking to bankruptcy lawyers. The local newspaper ran a front-page story about the festival incident. Local business owners' awards ceremony disrupted by family scandal, the headline read. The article was carefully worded to avoid libel, but it included enough details to make the situation clear. Nina called me once, crying, begging me to make it stop. "The whole town is talking about us," she sobbed. "I can't go anywhere without people staring, whispering. Mel won't even return my calls." "You made your choices, Nina. Now you get to live with them." "This isn't what I wanted." "Then you should have thought about that before you decided to sleep with my brother." She hung up and I never heard from her again. Mark lasted another month before he declared bankruptcy and left town. Lisa filed for divorce and got the house, the savings account, and what was left of his reputation. The auto shop was sold to pay creditors. The lake cottage went into foreclosure. 6 months later, I heard through the gossip network that Nina had moved to Portland, where she was working as a receptionist at a dental office and raising Mark's son alone. Mark had ended up in Boston, working for someone else's auto shop, living in a studio apartment, sending whatever child support he could afford. They'd both gotten exactly what they deserved. As for me and Mel, we did just fine. Better than fine, actually. The house was quieter without Nina's drama, more peaceful without the constant tension of a failing marriage. Mel and I grew closer, bonding over shared meals and honest conversations and the knowledge that we could trust each other completely. I never remarried, never even dated seriously. I'd learned my lesson about trust and betrayal and the price of letting people too close to your heart. But I wasn't bitter. I was free. Free from lies, free from deception, free from people who thought they could use me and discard me without consequences. The Carter family name meant something again. It meant integrity. It meant standing up for yourself. It meant that some people couldn't be broken no matter how hard others tried. And that was enough. That was more than enough. One evening, 2 years after the festival incident, Mel and I were sitting on the front porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of red and gold. She was 18 now, getting ready for college, planning her own life and her own future. "Dad," she said quietly, "do you ever regret what you did? Do you ever wish you'd handled things differently?" I thought about it for a moment, considering the question seriously. Did I regret destroying Nina and Mark's lives? Did I regret the public humiliation, the financial ruin, the complete devastation I'd brought down on them? "No," I said finally. "I don't regret it at all. They made their choices and I made mine. They chose betrayal and I chose justice. They chose to destroy our family and I chose to make sure they paid the price. What if Mom had asked for forgiveness? What if she'd ended the affair and tried to make things right? She didn't ask for forgiveness, kiddo. She asked me to raise another man's child while she continued lying to my face. She asked me to be a fool, and I decided I'd been a fool long enough." Mel nodded, understanding. "I'm proud of you, Dad, for standing up for yourself, for showing me that people can't just walk all over you without consequences." That's the most important lesson I can teach you, Mel. Don't let anyone make you feel like you deserve less than honesty, respect, and loyalty. And if someone betrays those things, make sure they understand the cost. We sat in comfortable silence as the sun disappeared behind the trees and the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, Nina was probably putting Mark's son to bed, telling him stories about his father who lived far away. Somewhere out there, Mark was probably sitting in his small apartment, wondering how his life had gone so wrong so fast. But I wasn't thinking about them anymore. I was thinking about the future, about Mel's college plans, about the kitchen renovation I was planning for the Hendersons, about the simple pleasure of honest work and honest relationships. I was thinking about how sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate schemes or complex plots. Sometimes the best revenge is simply telling the truth and letting people face the consequences of their actions. Sometimes the best revenge is justice. And justice, I'd learned, was sweeter than any revenge could ever be.